Hey guys, it's your host Julian. This week I'm sitting down with Bob's Burgers Retake director, Erin Humiston. I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons that help support this podcast. Bill, Brent, Brittany, Eight-Legged Bird, Jacob, and Semantics. Thank you all so much for your support. It truly means a lot. If you want to become a member of our Patreon channel to help support this show and get all these episodes early and ad-free, follow the link below and sign up today. Now, let's get to that chat with Erin. Erin, long time coming. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, man. So,
Excellent.
just to give the folks a little bit of breakdown, how I find Aaron. I'm a huge fan of Bob's Burgers for one. I told you that before we hit record, but I'm scrolling through Twitter like most of us do, or X aimlessly, and I happen to see a guy just going like this all over the place, right? And I'm like, what's going on? And I see Bob's Burgers and I see a Teddy side by side. And lo and behold, we get to chat and I find out you're a retakes director over on Bob's, and then this is how we kind of meet. So,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, obviously we're talking Bob's Burgers. Aaron, I would love to know, how do you go from doing what you were doing to getting on Bob's?
Oh man. Well, it's been a while. I'm 42 years old, so I've been in the industry for a while now. But Bob's is actually my very first TV gig,
Hmm.
and now it's like a career. Everything I was in freelance to begin with, so gig has always been my my term, but yeah, I started doing freelance. It was mostly like storyboarding. I worked on like the Angry Birds series, and I worked on like some indie films, and but it was all freelance. But then I landed my first like full time job at Blue Sky
Hmm.
Studios out in Connecticut. I'm still in Connecticut now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I moved out to Connecticut. I used to live in Florida when I was doing all my freelance. But then yeah, I started working in Blue Sky. I worked for them for a few years, and during the pandemic, that's when Disney shut down Blue Sky. And so, just like everyone else at Blue Sky, everyone was throwing their reels and stuff everywhere. And so I was a 2D guy at Blue Sky, and so I was just throwing my reels out in various 2D places, and then I threw a reel to Bento Box
Hmm.
for a gig. They were At the time, it was a gig that they were looking for a 2D animator, and so they responded, and that's when I discovered it was for the Bob's Burgers movie. And I was over the moon. Well, for one, I was over the moon just because, yeah, I'd love to work on a Bob's Burgers, but I was actually more over the moon that the fact that they were still working on it, because I didn't hear anything about it, and I was like, oh, sweet, it's still happening. So so yeah, that was how I jumped in. It was all remote, because again, we were still kind of in lockdown at the time.
Hmm.
But it was all remote work. And so oddly enough, I never really set foot in the studio until, like, gosh, it has to be like maybe 3 or 4 months ago was the
Yeah.
first time they flew me out to LA, and I got to see the studio and talk to these people I've been working with just online for who knows how long. But uh but uh yeah, it's so my first experience was really very standard for what I was used to, based on my freelance time, because that was all always online as well. And um and I worked from home during all those freelance gigs, so it was very just second nature to me. I got to meet everyone who was working on the show, on the movie, uh just through Zoom and through online. And there was really, it wasn't really, uh it was a very different experience for me, because you would think like, oh wow, stepping into a studio for the first time and just being so, enamored by everything. But it was kind of opposite, where I was just like, it's another gig. Okay, hey, how's it going, everyone? Blah blah blah. And as more time went by, that's when I became more enamored in the studio, and that's where, when I got to meet the people, and I got to see the workflow of just the whole process. That kind of flips me over to like, wow, this is a really cool project. This is a
Yeah.
really, and even, I can't even say it's a project doesn't really give it justice. It's this product, I guess.
Hmm.
And because yeah, after the movie was over, they moved me to the show. And again, never worked in television before. I've always worked in like feature or like shorts that were kind of feature level production where a lot of a lot of just high, what's the word? Just a lot of kind of Disney level kind of posing and acting and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Where Bob's, and I'm assuming most television is very like kind of stiff and minimal kind of posing and acting and stuff like that. I don't want to say minimal acting, but I mean you know what I mean.
Yes.
There's a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
difference between like Simpsons animation and Disney animation,
Hmm.
and so I was used to the Disney animation, not used to the Simpsons style animation, and I don't know. We can I could keep going, but yeah. In general, that was just kind of my experience where it was like, you know, I stepped into it more just like a gig kind of mentality, and the more time I spent, the more I was like, whoa, this is something bigger. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
And now I'm like, I don't know. Now I'm like really just attached to the project, and just I feel very thankful that I'm a part of it, which I never imagined I would be with television. I always thought like, I wanted to be in feature film and doing that crazy Disney level animation. But I'm super thankful that I'm in this position right now, and I'm loving the hell out of it. And I mean, I'm just fine riding this train as long as they'll have me,
Dude,
So
I hope this train never stops, man. This is a show. So I've said it on so many occasions. Like you can really tell whatever product, whether it's a movie, whether it's music, whether it's food, you could really tell when somebody enjoys what they're doing. In every episode of Bob's I've ever seen, right? It feels like everybody isn't, it feels like a party, right? It feels
yeah.
like this is something we should probably dress up and watch. You know what I mean? It's just, it's so whimsical. It's so fun. It's so silly. There's so much heart. There's so much humor. So like I said, it's just it seems like the entire cast and crew have a lot of fun doing this one.
Yeah.
With that being said, were you aware of Bob's Burgers? Did you watch it before, submitting your resume? Yeah.
I sure did. I love the show. I wasn't a fan of it from day one.
Hmm.
It took me, I didn't start watching it until like, I'm gonna just say maybe like season seven was out. And I wasn't I was one of those people that, I mean, granted, I'm assuming it's just because I was so into like the Disney, you know, DreamWorks, that level of animation. You'd look at something like Bob's and you just be like, ugh, that's kind of ugly. And so and so I kind of felt that way for a while. And I've talked to people where it's just like, I just can't look at it. It's too ugly. I'm like, dude, just watch it. Just give, for me, it was that first episode. When I
Yeah.
watched that first episode, and I'm like, this
The
is
pilot.
this is something special.
Are you talking about the pilot?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
That's when I knew the
Definitely.
show was going to be special because you go back and you watch that, and I've been watching it since it first came out. Well, probably the year after because I was on deployment when it first came out,
Mhm.
and I saw it when I was on the ship when they had the DVDs, the box set. I knew this show was going to be special by the first burger of the day on the pilot. When you're
Oh,
looking up there
nice.
and it says the child molester and you get a free piece of candy, that I was like, dude, they literally threw everything they could at the screen in hopes like the way I look at that pilot is I go and I think, man, they threw everything they could because I don't know if they thought they were going to get a full series. So they wanted to put every joke in here. It was hit, 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 hit. I will go down and say that that is one of the strongest pilots of all time. I'll
Oh
put
God,
that one
yeah.
up there. with King of the Hill, which is my favorite adult animated show of all time. But Bob's is fucking creeping up. I don't know if it'll ever surpass it, but they're on the same level. If this is my Mount Rushmore, essentially. So you got King of the Hill, you've got Bob's Burgers, you've got regular show, and you've got Hey Arnold. And then I'm gonna have five, even though we don't have five presidents on the Mount Rushmore. But I'm gonna put Samurai Jack from Gendy
Oh,
Tartakovsky and Cartoon
lovely.
Network.
Love it.
It's those are those are the bar for every set of or every sect of animation for me. The characters just play so well. The one thing I have noticed so well together, excuse me, as I finish that thought, the one thing that I noticed when you were talking about, people saying it was an ugly show, hard to watch, that type of thing. I think there was some kind of charm to it because when I
Yeah,
was watching it, it had a Muppets vibe to it. Like if you look at any of the Muppets, the puppets and stuff, they all have that vibe and that look. I got Kermit sitting right behind me. I'm a huge Jim Henson fan. But it always had that vibe, and I found so much fun looking at the Muppets, just like I do with Bob's.
yeah.
Um, now,
Have
when
you
you,
have you ever talked or like read any of like Lauren Bouchard's? Have you like talked to him or read any of his stuff?
he's a hero of mine. I've never gotten a chance to talk to him. No.
It's so funny that you bring up Muppets because that Muppets is actually kind of part of our style guide.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like if you pay close attention, one big no-no in Bob's it happens. Rules are always broken every now and
Hmm.
then. But one general rule is that we never have characters look like if two characters are next to each other and we want a character to look to that person and talk to them, it's one of the major rules is we have to turn the heads. We
Yeah.
treat them like Muppets. So we never have like eyes looking to characters. We have to turn the heads,
Yeah.
and basically the eye we just kind of a general the eyes are always pointed forward. And so whatever they're looking at, they got to turn their heads to.
Mhm.
And the example they say is like you got to pretend like they're a Muppet, and
Yeah.
you know, and that's how they look around, you know, and I really feel like Lauren has us a love for the Muppets as well. That he is instilled. That's part of the charm. He wants to put that Muppets charm into Bob's, and I think that's another reason why it's so charming. And another thing I want to say too, which I was blown away with when I first started working on the Bob's show, the and mostly as a retake director because now as a retake director I get to work with the higher creatives, and one of the high creatives is named Tony, and Tony was one of the high creatives on King of the Hill,
Oh,
and
wow.
so it's crazy how like when I discovered that he was like a king and he was a I don't know what the right word is, but it's got to be like some sort of like maybe just director, like it's
Hmm.
like assistant director or something. But yeah, Tony, basically all the shots, uh, as far as acting wise, Tony is like kind of the final approval for that.
What's Tony's last name?
Gennaro,
Okay.
Gennaro, and I want to ask him if they named Gail because Gail's last name is Gennaro, and so I'm wondering if like they named her like that if like the Linda line is their last name is after Tony. It was named after Tony, but I'm not sure yet. I don't know how long Tony's been in it, but
Well, I can tell you that a guy that helped Lauren with the show, Jim Dotrieve was the head writer for King of the Hill for quite some time.
yeah.
And he is a consultant. And then you'd look at Dotrieve, Bill, Delator Dotrieve from King of the Hill. They took his
Oh,
last
nice,
name,
nice.
Dotrieve. So, like I said, I'm a huge King of the Hill fan, huge Bob's Burgers fan, and I loved, um, the reason I got the Muppets or I took the Muppets from it mainly because of the long neck and the chain. You see a lot of Beaker, you see a lot of those
Hmm.
ancillary characters that are in there, but the same thing, it was just the movement. And
Yeah,
one thing I love about how you guys move or place, or you guys have a character interact with another character, is kind of like what I'm doing now. Like very rarely, like we'll sit here and we'll make eye contact, but most of the time, like I talk with my hands, so I'm looking around, I'm doing
yeah,
this, I'm doing that,
yeah.
and that's what I love about the characters too. Because if whenever they do like a heartfelt scene, like the one that I'm thinking of now is when it was fuck, this is like maybe season four. maybe.
Mhm.
But Tina gets on the news team, and then they're doing pretty much if it bleeds, it leads, and they've got that panel that's like a green screen behind it, and it's like the ick thing. And Tina's about to hit it with a hammer because she's tired of it. It's making everybody sad and making everybody upset. And Bob is given this like speech. He's like, "Well, no, you shouldn't do that." And like every time he goes to make eye contact, he like quickly looks away, so his eyes are just darting,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know. So that's another realism that I like about this show because it's like that's imitating life right there. Because
yeah, yeah,
sometimes you'll sit there and you'll make eye contact, but it's weird to sit there and make eye contact the entire time. You know what I mean? So it's like you look away
yeah.
type of things. But that was another real life thing that was brought into the show that I found charming, but also I don't think very many people notice that, you know?
Well, the thing is, you feel it. You don't
Yeah.
notice it. You can't like. I mean, very few of us can point out like, look at how the eye acting is in there,
Hmm.
but you feel it. If it's
Yeah.
not there, then it's like you don't get that same feeling from the character. And I love that you say stuff like that because honestly, that's going back to Tony. He is
Hmm.
such a genius at that, and I try my hardest to put in like that level of just attention to just how a character would really act in that situation. And that's honestly, that's a major reason why I do that live action. I
Yeah.
do the reference because it's like it's been kind of a general rule since I even started on the movie, was like we don't want to go Looney Tunes with our characters. We want to like basically anything that these characters do, we want to be able to have a person do it in real life.
Hmm.
So that's been a lot of my inspiration behind all the acting that I do is, if it's going to be something crazy and a little over the top, I want to try and act it out first so I don't end up putting in any poses or timing in there that just doesn't feel right as far as what a human would do and or what a human wouldn't do. But going back to Tony, he is such a master at that.
Hmm.
And I'm assuming because he worked so long on Bob's, but then on King of the Hill, because they have that level of subtlety too. That's so just so brilliant. And Tony's so good. Like I'll put so much work into getting the shot perfect, and Tony's like, maybe if we just tweak the eyes here, or maybe the character needs to do like look away and just kind of shake it. He'll say stuff like that. And I'm like, oh man, that's so right. You nailed it. And he's such a genius at finding that perfect acting, that genuine level of human acting in the performance of the characters, which I try to absorb as much as I can,
Hmm.
and and I I want to apply that to, of course, apply that to Bob's, but just apply that to my library of knowledge, for as long as I'm on this world.
Oh, 100%. I got you. Well, since we're talking about Tony for a little while, I usually save this question for the end of the podcast, man, but we might as
Mhm.
well stick to it now. So, with working with him and then just seeing like how his brain works and like what he looks for, really like just scanning the scene that you're working on. What are some of the things that you might have picked up from him that you probably didn't have in your bag or your repertoire before you came to Bob's, but you know you're for sure going to have it after you leave?
Uh, you know what? As far as acting though, I still feel like it might. I've never actually got to sit down and talk to him man to man
Hmm.
about just like his thought process on how to handle characters. But I definitely, especially when I was at Blue Sky, that's when I got introduced to doing personal reference for characters. But that's where I kind of trained myself on how to do it and just a workflow, applying that to my workflow. But working on Bob's, that's where it really pushed me into just really diving into the character. And still, like I said, just the way Tony does it is so just good. Where I just feel like I feel like I'm at that. It's it's I can't think of a good way to explain it. I just feel like I'm that guy that's watching the metal guitarist playing an insane guitar
Yeah.
lick, and I'm just like, how the heck do you do that? And I
He's
haven't jumped
mesmerizing you.
yes, I haven't jumped into that phase where I'm starting to like learn guitar myself, you know?
Yeah.
And so you know, I definitely want to step into like sitting down with him, and granted I am like reading like acting books and stuff like that just for my own sake, but I would love to sit down with him sometime and just, you know, pick his brain for that. So I don't have an answer as far as like character acting, you know, learning from Tony or anything, but because I'm still in that phase of just like, wow, that's so, you know, and every now and then, you know, I'll put in something. He's like, yeah, that works. Yeah, I like that. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. I don't know what I did, but apparently it worked. So, so, uh, so yeah. I mean, I'm sure. I there's definitely a lot of things that I've learned as far as just diving into the character. And honestly, it was Lauren who because I fortunately there are brief moments where I actually get to work directly with Lauren. And I'm not sure if was the of my three episodes that I picked, I wasn't sure if the Bosco one where Bob teaches Bosco how to cook a burger was that on my
No,
three.
you've got Escape from Witch Island, so that was
Mhm.
essentially Epstein's Island.
Yeah.
Don't Stop Be Cheesin', that was
Yep,
the
that's the
prank where they're
new
going
one.
around and cheesing people.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? For Whom the Doll
No,
Tows.
cool. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So, all right, well then I'll throw in a fourth one. It was the Bosco. I can't remember the name of the episode, but it was the one where Bob teaches Sergeant Bosco how to cook a burger because Bosco's trying to go undercover, um, trying to go undercover as a burger cook to get into this, you know, this underground sort of gang thing. But
Mhm.
but that was a very tough episode for me, and it was all because of the acting. One of my personal things that I'm trying to get over is not just I'm so used, and I'm assuming this is just in general for any kind of actor, is that like when you try to become a different character, you I have the habit, and I'm assuming it's a bad habit, of just going, what would I do in this situation? And
Mhm.
so I act out the scene, you know, the way I would react to it. And and so when I'm working on this Bosco episode, uh Sergeant Bosco is a very different personality than me.
Yeah.
and and so I actually had Lauren, he, you know, because I was like, oh, we should do this and we should do that. And I remember Bernard, another amazing artist, and he's one of the top directors on Bob's too, Bernard Derriman. He was going, no, we should do this with Bosco. And I was like, I don't know. I really think we should do it this way. And Lauren had to stop me. And he's like, Bosco wouldn't do that.
Mhm.
Bosco would, and I was like, oh God. And that's where I realized, like, okay, I'm pitching what I would do in this situation. And Bosco's a very different person than me. And so that's one of the things that I'm always struggling with. And you know, usually like with Teddy, I can get, you know, crazy goofy and stuff, but yeah, but there are characters that are that are very specific, which again blows me away with both Tony and Lauren and Bernard too, as you know, they have this ability to they know their characters so well, and when they're so different, it's really it's unfathomable for me. My brain is so I don't know if it's just simple as far as like I always just put myself as like what would I do in this situation,
Mhm.
but it's just amazing to work with people who have this ability to know what these very different characters would do in these situations. And I mean that's just the brilliance of a good writer, and that's what I love. That's the biggest thing that I love about working on Bob's is it's a writer driven product.
Mhm.
And it was always something that I complained about internally and, with coworkers and stuff. Is I've worked on so many projects that were all just visual based, and how cool can we make it? how how many colors can we stuff into this? How, what's the specular lighting, and how much fur can we give to these characters? It's all so just visual based, which there's value in that. But when the writing takes a back seat to that, it always bothered me. And that's the thing that I'm just so in love with working on Bob's, where it's amazing to work on a show that, like, the visuals almost take, well, they take a back seat to the solid writing. And there have been times where, like, I've personally said, like, this shot, we need to tweak the eyebrow, we need to make sure the pupils are right. And they're like, no, the joke reads, man, the joke is there. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. We don't need to make the visuals perfect. The joke reads, and we've done our job, it's such a cool it's such a cool thing to work on for me. That's one of the most, I think that is the most rewarding thing that I feel about working on Bob's. And so I don't know. I don't know if I even answered the question or not,
No,
but
you did, and I love this is what I love about podcasting, man. Wherever the conversation goes, it goes, man.
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I'm just agreeing.
Oh, got you. And one thing I love, because this show, a lot like, King of the Hill, a lot like Futurama, a lot like early Simpsons. My mom would look at these shows, even now that I'm watching them as adults, and she would just tell me like, "Oh, you're watching stupid shows," and I was like, "Well, no, no, I'm not," because a lot of this writing staff is all Ivy League graduates. These guys are all intelligent from all of those shows I just mentioned. I was like, all the schools that I'll never be able to get into, Mom. I've said this before, so ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. All the schools I'll never be able to get into. These guys went through and made a career out of it, and now they're writing some of the greatest jokes. What I love about Bob's, not so much more than anything, but I think it sets it apart from other shows that are in it's like the same demographic, the same time block, kind of same style, whether it's adult animated, what have you, is the editing and timing on this is so fucking sharp. You
Yeah.
guys will hit a joke, plant, and then just sit in it for a little while, or you'll hit a joke and it'll skip to the next one. It is. I am always amazed whenever I watch an episode because, with the exception of the characters, they're not one episode that's the same. You might have some similarities here and there, depending on what movie reference that they might be talking about. There's a lot of T2 stuff here and there,
Mhm.
but other than that, it's a completely different show from show to show or episode to episode, excuse me. And how you guys can sit there and edit so perfectly,
Oh
so
yeah.
well to highlight what the writers wrote and then to highlight what the artist did, to highlight what the voice acting did. It's just
Hmm.
like everybody just your shirt says it one up, man. It's like you guys keep one upping each other. And I've been trying to figure out I can read one up. Is that a Dig Dug shirt?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a big thing.
I thought so, man. I had I'll cut this part out. But I had and or I'll leave it in. It just says it depends, man.
All good.
That's what I love about this shit, because conversation, man, and we get to know a
Yeah,
better part of or a better piece of Aaron.
yeah.
Growing up, the N64 and still to me is the greatest system of all time. I love the Nintendo Switch. I spend more time playing Smash Brothers and Mario Kart, just destroying my oldest son
Oh, I
in it
love it.
every chance I could possibly get.
Oh,
Um,
man.
but one game we had, it was like the arcade series for the N64. So they had that, they had Pac-Man, they had a couple other things that they had
Nice.
on old school Nintendo. And Dig Dug was one we always played, and I
Oh,
always just
nice.
fucking absolutely destroyed. And I would always I'm like, all right, I got this, I got this, I got this, and then they would just catch up real quick, man.
Oh,
But yeah, so great shirt by the way. I always love when
thanks.
people wear some
Yeah,
cool
it's
t-shirts.
actually one of those barcade out in
Uh-huh.
Denver. It's the one up, the one up. It was a barcade out in Denver.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was cool. And they had a bunch of shirts that were all that was like there's a Donkey Kong shirt, and but
That's my
yeah,
favorite
it
character of all time.
was
I'll show you.
nice. Oh,
So
nice. I
that's my little pen
found
jar.
I found this at
Oh, that
this
is so
guy.
cool.
Yeah. They're those, remember those old toys that like you could
Uh-huh.
stick the the thumb in
Yeah.
the I was like, oh, that's so cool.
And another one, I'm a huge Kirby fan, so I
Yeah,
love me some
man.
Kirby. And
Nice.
I've got a couple of the characters. I haven't put any Bobs up there yet. I've been very very busy. So
Oh
I've
yeah.
taken a break from the wall, but there's quite a few of this Nintendo characters from Kirby to Mario to Luigi.
Oh,
The whole
beautiful.
cast of Bobs is going to be on there
Oh,
eventually whenever
nice.
sometime.
Nice.
Um, so getting it back to Bob's,
Yeah.
the everything on here is top notch from every aspect of animation. I mean, you guys are hitting on all cylinders. One thing I love though is whenever I ask somebody to come on and we're talking a specific show, I love favorite episodes. Obviously, I told everybody at the beginning of this episode, I found you by just scrolling on Instagram. I see a guy fucking losing his shit next to Teddy, and I was like, oh, what is this? I was captivated, right?
Nice,
I was
nice.
mesmerized. I was like, I stayed around for this, and then we connected, and then we're here. Um, the three episodes you gave me,
Mhm.
Don't Stop Be Cheesin', For Whom the Doll Toes, and then Escape from Witch Island. Which episode do you want to start with?
I guess we'll do Escape from Wish Island because I honestly that was one where I was more that was kind of early on in my retake career
Hmm.
on Bob's. Um I guess if we want to go if we want to just go into full detail, I started on the movie, then they moved me to to the show as just an animator. And then I worked on Bob's as an animator for a year, I'll just say a year. And then they moved me to their other show. Have you watched The Great North?
Hmm. I haven't
Yeah.
watched
So,
all of it, but I've caught it when it's on.
okay, great. Yeah. So they moved me to The Great North as a retake storyboard artist. And that was kind of the turning point for me because as an animator, I mean, it's a great job, but it's very much you're doing a lot of fixing of
Hmm.
previously animated shots because they do all the animation overseas. And so if you're a stateside animator, you're doing mostly just fixing the shots that everyone needs, that's just not working from what came overseas. So so there's not a lot of like all the creative stuff has been already taken care of by the retake director and the retake board artist, and they hand down uh they basically hand down, here's what you got to do, so you just do it and you're done. And but moving into retake board art, that's where it put me into the more creative side, and I got to actually work with when I was on Great North, I got to work with the Molyneux sisters, who are the main showrunners for
Hmm.
that show. And that's where I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." That's where I fell in love with just working in the television animated television environment. But then they moved me back to Bob's as a retake director, and Escape from Wish Island was basically like just a total meat and potatoes type of episode for me, just because I love high action. It's fun
Hmm.
just doing like all this crazy. I got to board out the one guy who just went absolute crazy, and he was like running around
Eating
like
everybody.
an ape man and stuff, and doing the whole shot where he's like sniffing the air and looking around and stuff. And and then I got to do all the they wanted they had the shot of all the people dancing around the campfire, the bonfire, and they're like, okay, we want this shot like twice as long. And so
Mhm.
I had to animate all the stuff that happened, all the dancing after that, which was a total blast to do. And just because again, it's just really high action, high energy. And on top of that, just because it's a Bob's episode. It's and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but one thing I usually hate is like a dance sequence in a animated movie. It's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do the Justin Bieber dance. Yeah, we're gonna do the it's like, okay, fine. But Bob's, it's like you got to do something weird. You
Mhm.
can't just do like, the standard disco, you got to come up with something bizarre. You can't just do your standard dance. And so doing the doing that dance around the campfire, I I spent so much time just doing research, just finding the funkiest, weirdest, like drunk guy dances, where they're flinging their heads around and flinging their arms around, and I was like, oh, let's do that. And it was one of the again, it was one of those moments where they they just let me do it. And and probably because I mean it's one of the great things about being a retake director is that I work in post production, and so we don't have a lot of time to before the deadline of the episode because I'm in that last push before we publish the episode, and
Mhm.
so we don't have a lot of time. And I actually love that because then I can't, it's like, let's put this dance in there. And they don't have time to say no. And so, and so, yeah. I mean, granted, I mean, if they absolutely couldn't do it, then they're like, no, they will tell me no if that just can't work out. Actually, I just submitted something to a Bob's episode where it's just something I really want to do,
Yeah.
and everyone's just like, I don't know if we could do that. Well, I'm still doing it. And if Lauren says no, I have a backup plan, but I still want to get this in front of his eyes. But anyway, going back to that episode, it was one of those things where I just did all these funky dances, and everyone was like, "Yeah, yeah, it works." And it was my first little moment of I shouldn't say it's my first, but it was probably my first major moment where I really just pushed for I want to do this, and they said, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, let's do it. I'm so used to people just saying like, a lot of the time because it wasn't their idea that they're like, no, no, I think we should do this. And it's like, all right, well, that's your show, so let's do it your way. But that, they just like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, oh, sweet. It was such a cool moment. And then on top of that, it was a fish odor episode, and fish
Mhm.
odor is such a funny character and
Yes.
such a, it's I just love how just nonchalant he is and how he's,
Diabolical.
yeah, diabolical, but but it's like no apologies about it.
Mhm.
He's just like, yeah, yeah, this is you don't do this. He's almost just there's like an innocence to him and it's one of those characters that I just love, where he's like, yeah, Bob, yeah, we're gonna do all these drugs. It's like, yeah, what were you expecting? And yeah, we're gonna have a crazy dance around the campfire. What were you thinking? It's such a funny, just personality that I just love to work on stuff like that. I've never worked, like I said, I've never worked in an environment or on a project that was like that. It was always just very, very pretty stuff, but it was always your standard, like, you know, let's save the princess, or it's like, you know, two characters, are friends, and then they become enemies and they leave and then they meet back up in the end. It's very, you're very cookie cutter kind of stuff.
Yeah. Cliche.
And yeah, and working on Bob's is so bizarre and just so diving into just weird, just the weird side of the mind that just it's such a treat. And Fish Odor is just one of the many characters that it's so much fun to dive into that weird brain, you know,
Oh,
and have
absolutely.
fun. But yeah, so that was that was my first kind of meat and potatoes as a retake director, where I just let loose and they let me let loose, and I put in so much fun stuff for me. That's the thing. It's like they let me get to play in the sandbox, and
Mhm.
and they accepted it, you know. It's such a as as I don't know. I don't know if it's like a cool thing to hear, but it's such a cool thing for me personally just to know that like these people brought me in, let me play in their sandbox, and they said, "Yeah, let's do that," you know? And I'm not used to that. I'm so used to the superiors saying, "That's cute, but no, we're not doing that. We're doing this." Okay, I'll do
No, it's
that.
very cool. It's very cool to hear as a fan. I told you before we hit record, man. It seems like I might have told you after we recorded. It seems like everybody's having fun with this.
Yeah,
Animation, like many things, it's extremely collaborative, right? Because
yeah,
how you approach a scene is different than Tony, than Lauren, than any other board artist you might have, or any director,
yep,
So, but what all you guys do have is you guys speak the same language. You guys all have not so much the same perspective, but you have the same perception. You all want the characters to have fun. You always want the characters to
yeah.
do good. You always want the show to do good. So you guys are all coming from it from a very honest and I guess honest, yeah, honest position, right?
Hmm.
And when you see the level, like, and I'm not just blowing smoke, the level of production that they do for Bob's, like, I don't know how much money they throw at each episode, but it's a lot. When you watch it, you're like, I'm getting the greatest, like you go to Wendy's and you get the biggie bag or whatever the fuck it's called now, the 3 for $5. That's what it
Yeah,
feels like. You're getting so much bang for your buck when you're just as a strictly as a viewer and a fan of this, like every episode I tune into, I'm having fun. From Fish
yeah.
Odor, Luis has always been my favorite
Oh, yeah.
character. I love that character. And one of the episodes we'll talk about here shortly, I'll save it for that, but it's just she's a very endearing character. And having 3 kids myself, I have a 15-year-old, a 3-year-old, and almost
Ah,
a 1.5-year-old. Yeah, big spread. I pick, my oldest is Tina through and through. Just
hmm,
the
hmm.
awkwardness, the weirdness, just the,
Love it.
yeah, and then my youngest two, depending on the day. One of them could be Luis, but then they could switch, and the other one could be Gene. So they both ride that line very, very well. Just with the personalities alone. But I love this show for so many reasons, but the characters keep bringing it back, and the love and the attention, the detail that you guys give these characters, from the writing to the acting to the retakes to the animation, it's just second to none, man.
Yeah.
With
Thank you.
before we rotate off of Escape from Witch Island. I think my favorite part in this whole episode is when Bob finally agrees to be tied up, and you see it's so fun. It's like a bunch of drunk frat boys that have
Yeah.
gotten together and they think it's gonna happen. Like, oh, he's really gonna get it. Put some more meat on his eyebrows. That was my favorite thing. Make his eyebrows more bushy. I don't know who came up with that little bump up or whatever it might have been, the plus on that scene up. But that scene alone, and then you see Mr. Fishoder like have a come to Jesus meeting essentially. Like he's like, oh shit, I should probably untie him. He was the only like normal, not normal rich guy that was there,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's like the Grinch, man. His heart grew 2 sizes too big
Yep,
during that
yep.
scene, So it was cool kind of seeing him be humanized in a sense
Hmm.
because you look at him, he's like, oh, he's out of touch. He's rich. He doesn't understand, the
Yeah,
dilemma that Bob is in, So, but it was cool seeing him having that realization, like, dude, we can't get this guy killed. He's got a family to fucking feed. So it was cool seeing that whole
yeah.
sequence, and then them just them trapping the dude that was going ape shit and then tying him down. Then you see him coming down from his bad trip. I just thought it was like I was like this has to be not so much a story that was like real to somebody, but
Yeah.
somebody on this crew must have had a really bad mushroom
Oh
experience.
God, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was one of those things too. Like it was one of those moments where a lot of us were like, wow, we're actually doing this? Like the whole
Yeah.
drug references and the whole coming down from a bad trip and stuff. And we're like, Are they actually
Was there
letting
any
us do
kickback?
this?
Was there any
Huh?
kickback was there any kickback that you heard
I
of?
don't think there was. If there was, then I'm assuming that Lauren and or maybe some other higher ups pushed back
Squashed
for
it.
them.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of us were like, it's kind of a running joke is every now and then we're like, wow, this is like a season one joke that we're
Yeah.
pushing through, because now we have to be, it feels like we have to be a little more family friendly
Mhm.
versus season one. But we're like, wow, every now and then a season one joke will sneak through, and we always love that when that happens, which is another reason why that was probably one of my favorites at the time, because that was my first season one. Season one is always my favorite Bob
Yeah.
season. But and so whenever a season one joke manages to sneak through, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But speaking
Season
of,
one's real strong.
yeah, man, it was, if season one was any less strong, I kind of wonder if I would get hooked to Bob's to begin with, because I feel like it was that shock value that really attracted me to the
Mhm.
show. It just in general. So, but but I'm glad that you mentioned when he got tied up in the whole frat boy thing, because
Yeah.
that's probably another one of my favorite stories from that moment was we were all, because the thing is, Tony and Bernard, but I work with Tony mostly. Tony is involved with pre-production on each of the
Mhm.
episodes as well. He's involved like with the whole process of every single episode. He's always just a consultant or just, approving stuff that comes through. But so every single episode, whenever I join in on the episode, Tony's already been working on it for probably like months.
Yeah.
But on that time when Bob was tied to the table, and all these, that the whole frat boy moment, and when everyone left, we were kind of reviewing the shots, and it was the part where everyone left and left Bob alone on the table, and Tony was like, oh, I still kind of want to do the kiss. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh yeah, you don't know about it? I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I was kind of pitching that the what was it, the August or whatever. He like leans in and kisses Bob when he leaves, and I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, that was something I wanted, but nobody wanted. I'm like, dude, let's do it. I want to do that. And he's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you want it, let's try it. And I was like, we have to do that. And so that's when I dove in and boarded the whole kissing sequence, and then we got to run it by Lauren, and he was like, yeah, that's really funny. Let's do it. Because again, great thing working with Lauren is that he is just a joke guy, and if we can add a joke to an episode, he will usually say yes. I mean, of course, it has to work with the story, but man, he's always for more jokes rather than less.
Yeah.
So but yeah, adding in that little kiss at the end was, I was so just like, yes, let's do it, just because it's so weird,
Mhm.
and yeah, and so, yeah, since Tony wanted to do it to begin with, it was such a great, and that's always been something too, like with Tony, is every now and then he'll just chime in and go like, yeah, I kind of wanted this to happen. And it's like, I'm not even gonna say 9 times out of 10, it's usually 10 times out of 10 it's like, dude, that's an awesome idea, we definitely should do that. And so again, just working with such amazing people on the show.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That was really cool to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah.
So I would love for whom the toes. I keep wanting to say for whom the bell tolls just because it's a Metallica reference, you know what I mean? So I got a little tongue tied there. So I'm like I said, I told you I'm a huge Louise fan. My favorite character, she is one of the funniest characters I've ever seen in anything. I mean, just her
Yeah.
delivery, the stuff that you guys put her in and watch her react, it's like it my favorite episode of all time is Earsea Riders when the biker gang comes in and then
Yes,
she
yes,
gets
I
her
love
ears
that.
stolen, right? So she hires this gang to go and scare him and he was about to get his ear cut off with a switchblade and then Mudflap starts having a baby and all this other shit.
Such
Um
a good one.
it's so fantastic. The whole scene was like, oh, my grandma's name was Mudflesh. It was? No, she was a respectable woman. So there's so many fun jokes in there. But whenever I get to see like a Louise centric episode, and not just a Louise centric episode, when you like peel back the layers of this episode, and then especially that character, she is very standoffish, and you see it throughout the
Mhm.
show as the show starts to progress. I can't remember what episode it was, but it was essential. Shit, it's gone. CRS is a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get old. Don't get older. But it's a scene in there where, she's talking to like Bob's talking to her, and then the whole thing comes around. It's like, oh, you want to do what I do? You want to run this restaurant, essentially. That's the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
No, I don't. But how would you do it? Type of thing if you did, right? So you see these like humanistic characteristics in a human, right? And Louise,
Oh
but
yeah.
she's that standoffish person. She's very against letting anybody close to her in, right? And you
Yeah.
see that kind of change, but in Luis's way,
Hmm.
for whom the doll toes, right? It's fun seeing this murder mystery come together. She gets this boom of an idea. She walks into a doll store. Her brother doesn't get invited to this party. What was it? The step teacher? No, that's a step
Substitute.
parent. Substitute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Substitute
Substitute
teacher.
teacher comes in, and then it's this whole thing, and it's an elaborate way of Luis essentially telling Jean that she kind of wronged him and she's sorry she kind of did it. And it was just a beautiful moment for this
Yeah.
character, but you see her get so attached and enthralled in what she's doing. But I would love to know, man, how do you get to work on this episode?
Oh well, I mean, it was such a cool well, for one, I loved just the atmosphere of it. I mean, as much as I talk about loving working on, something that's so storytelling driven,
Mhm,
I that one was such a fun atmosphere with the
mhm,
dollhouse, with the whole murder mystery. I mean, I'm sure the team could come up with a way to do like a real murder mystery, but I felt this was like such a cool. It was such a throwback to like those old black and white
mhm.
films, that I just to me, I think that was one of the ones where it was the feeling was way more of a just like wow, this is very not a Bob's feeling episode as far as just the atmosphere and having Louise as the narrator, like where she's
Yeah.
telling this kind of story where it's like it's kind of like Clue, and it's
Hmm.
and and the mystery is kind of bizarre. The funny thing is, again, they diving into the characters. It At first I was like, well, I'm so used to like, a murder mystery to where it's like there's this grand reveal that's like, oh, it was always this character, and it all makes sense. They all bring like the storytelling down to why it makes sense. And it's like, oh, we didn't quite hit that, but I'm like, you know what? That works though, because this is Louise. This is a little kid trying to make up their own murder mystery. And it's like, yeah, I think it works that it's a little more simplified.
Oh, it works. It is a
Yeah.
phenomenal episode. Yeah, yeah. It is a brilliant episode. For the people that are sitting there watching and listening to this right now, you can sit there and think about stuff you used to do as a kid, right?
Yeah.
But to go and take yourself and put yourself into a kid's position on how they would talk, how they would react, how they would kind of take this, conceptualize it, and then regurgitate it. And then you do this with
Mhm.
things that like little kids shouldn't know about murder mysteries, right?
Yeah.
Little
Exactly.
kids shouldn't know murder. But the fact that you guys have such intelligent writers, man, they can go in there and do this. They could take the brain power over of Louise for just a little while. What would this character say? What would the motivations be? What would she do? How would she react? How would the
Yeah.
other characters react within that circle? I think it was fucking flawless. I don't think it was simple at all. I think that's probably a pretty difficult thing to do is sit there and try to get inside a child's mind and how would they perceive.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what turned it around for me because my first viewing of it was just like, it's okay. But then, yeah, when you went into that deeper layer of like, no, we aren't trying to make like a perfect murder mystery episode. We are trying to make Louise's murder mystery
Hmm.
episode. And it's so, and it feels so right to me and as far as storytelling. But then on top of that, just again, the atmosphere, the I loved the dolls using the red string
Red
as blood,
string. Yeah.
and 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 just that moment, because for me, I was right there with him when the teacher, the substitute, Mrs. Bisselbender, started showing them her doll, her doll
Hmm.
setups, the murder doll setups, and I was like, "What the heck?" As soon as the kids were, I was like, "What is that?" And almost like I got hooked, like the same moment that Louise gets hooked, and just brief little moments like that, to me is so amazing to me. One of the things that I will always remember is uh I don't know how old you are, but
35.
when huh
35.
okay, so I don't know, uh do you remember when the South Park movie came out?
Yes, I do.
Okay, okay, I was working in a movie theater when the South Park movie came out, and I was just blown away by the fact that I had to tell parents, I had to be just that character in the South Park movie where I had to tell parents, like, this is a rated R movie. I don't know if you want to put, I don't know if you want your kids to go to this movie. And the parents are like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, okay. And so,
I warned you.
yeah, yeah. And it was, and when I saw the movie where there's this guy, the ticket taker going, this is a rated R movie. I'm like, oh my God, they're making fun of me. And then, I remember going into the theater during the Uncle Fucker song, right? And on the movie, all the characters on the movie started walking out of the theater. It was like a mirror. All the adults were standing up and in the theater were walking out of the theater at the same time they're walking out of the theater in the movie. And I was like, I
Art
was just,
imitating life.
yes, I was blown away. And so, and that was, to me, that was the strongest that I was like, these guys are pure geniuses. Whoever,
Uh-huh.
the Matt and Trey or whoever worked on this, I was just blown away by. And ever since then, it's like I've always like tried to pay attention to like those brief moments where a piece of film can, where something happens on film at the exact same time that it happens to you. Like you're just
Mhm.
in tandem with the characters. And again, that was one of those times too where when Louise got hooked, that was when I got hooked. And I was like, oh cool, that is a really cool moment. And so then of course I was hooked with the whole mystery that she gave to Jean. But yeah, then on top of that, it was like it's such a it's such a cool way to just kind of say I'm sorry, to
You know what was so
to
special and endearing about her through this thing, and I don't know if many people agree with me, but there's a couple scenes in there where you see like she's going and going and going with the murder mystery, and Tina and Jean are just really starting to get upset and get agitated with it. You see Bob, and I love when Bob and Linda get upset, like what's going to happen, like, oh no, that's my wine, not yours, so I love those little comedic scenes. But one of the things that I thought was just so endearing was when Louise, like, that she like breaks character from the narrator for just a second. She's like, Gene, will you please just keep playing, please, I need this type
yeah,
of thing.
yeah.
And you see her trying to make that, like, I don't want to read too much into this because mainly it's the weed kicking in right now. So it's the emotional connection that you see, like she's breaching out, like trying to build that bridge because she really feels
Hmm.
like she did something wrong to Gene. And like I said, that's what makes this show so fun and so pure, is because you've got the slapstick silly stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
silly stuff. You've got the heartwarming stuff, but you have a character that is so real in a moment where they're in a fictitious world. They're not real, but they have a real moment. So you could see something like that happening. Maybe
yeah.
somebody's had that happen to them, in some form or fashion in their life. But I thought it was such a beautiful little moment. And she does it like two or three times. So I think it was like the rule of
Hmm.
three with this
Hmm.
one, but just her breaking that character for just a split second. She's like, please, we're almost there. Keep going.
Hmm.
I just thought it made that character so much more endearing.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And then on top of that, I loved Gene's struggle through it, where
Mhm.
he knew something was up, but he couldn't put it together. And
Yeah.
on top of that, he's already just bummed out that he wasn't
Hmm.
invited to his friend's party. And so, that was a real blast for me to work on too. A great character moment where I was really just trying to find find that struggle of a character just going like, I don't want to do this. Why am I, why am I here? And then just this whole like, wait a second, where finding that one moment where he realizes like, wait, you're talking about me, aren't you?
Yeah.
And and it was just a cool. And then on top of that too, like I loved sneaking in those little like Louise and Bisselbender would briefly like glance to each other because they were
Hmm.
in it together. There's a little bit of acting in there too, which was a blast to sneak in every now and then. And and then of course, it was fun just to have Tina, who was completely clueless, just kind of
Yeah.
pushing, pushing. She was like the train moving forward, just dragging Gene along. Where he was kind of more reluctant to do it. But
I'm the
I
bad
get,
cop, Gene.
yeah,
You're the good cop.
yeah, exactly. And it was just funny too, like adding in that fear of dolls that Tina had on top of that too. But yeah. So I and just another thing for me too, for that particular episode, which was kind of, which I'm assuming is one of the reasons why I picked that one, was because that was the first time I believe that uh I'm sorry, Bouchard asked me to do the end credits
Hmm.
for it, and he just, everyone's like, all right, Aaron's going to do the end credits for it. And Lauren said, like, I want it to be a Saul Bass, throwback to Saul Bass type of end credits.
Hmm.
And he showed me like it was Anatomy of a Murder credits for it. And he's like, I kind of want it like this. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So he just let me, again, playing in the sandbox, and I did the whole end credits for that. And and it was like the only thing that was changed, if I remember correctly, was when in the end credits was when they said, "Oh, we want to reveal the Louise ears on the chef."
Hmm.
And so when the chef pulls the string, I had the hat pop out to reveal the Louise ears. That was the only note they gave me. So that
Yeah.
was the first time where they said, "You go have fun." And I gave them back those end credits, and they said, wow, let's do that. That's
Hmm.
no, basically no notes. And so it was a really, really cool moment for me. And then it was all in storyboard. So I handed it over to the anim team, and they just really, all they did was just clean up the drawings that I had. It was so close to what I gave them. And it was a really, really cool moment to where they just, gave me full power to just do my own thing, and they loved it.
It's always so
Um,
special.
yeah, yeah. And again, I'm not used to that. I'm always used to throwing suggestions and just saying like, no, we're doing it this way. That's what I've been through my whole career. That's what my whole career has been, pretty much up until Bob's. And it's like I can't complain. It's like it's one of those things where I've always felt like, you got to give them something to look at for them. You got to give them something to look at for them to say no to. Then
Hmm.
they're going to tell you what you want. And so and so then it's all right, now that I know what you want, I can make it, and there you go. But yeah, this has really been the first time where I guess on Angry Birds there was a little bit of it where I was like, hey, let's try this, and they go, okay, yeah, let's do it. But Bob's has been really like, not only not just have I thrown a suggestion out and they go, yeah, let's do it, but I mean, it's honestly been the first time where they said like, I don't know what to do. Let's have Erin come up with something, And so that's, to me, that was a really major, I don't want to say
Validation.
breakthrough, but a step for me, where I was like, wow, they have trust in me, and it was very humbling. It was very, it was very special. It was a special moment for me is when they just said, you know, this is all you, you know?
It should be, man. That's validation from your peers. I mean, I think we can all link to just that one time. I mean, I work in the food industry, and it's also a very super collaborative and artistic, but very
Yeah.
technique driven, and you kind of have to be a craftsman at this, just like you were with animation. I remember the best chef I ever worked for, Chef Chris Edwards, man. I'd been working for him for a year. Every day I thought I was going to get fired just because I was super jaded. It was right after COVID. I didn't want to really be in the industry anymore. I was very upset with like how it just like this it all goes away. And it wasn't
Yeah.
even by choice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I'd been sitting there, I've been getting my ass just kicked in, kicked in, kicked in. It's crazy. I'd never been going at this clip with this level of technique and just this level of just like precision, right?
Yeah.
And one day I'm just like, all right, I think today is probably going to be the day I get fired. And then I was like, hey, chef, what do you want me to do with this? And he was like, I don't know, just do whatever you think is right. I trust you. And I went, oh, shit. I just I just got validated by the guy that is my hero in this industry. You
Wow.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's so cool to hear that you got to experience a moment like that, especially with something as special as this episode. So far, this has been my favorite episode from the season.
Oh, lovely.
It was so fun. Like I said, anything that's Louise centric, I'm all for.
Yeah.
So you guys absolutely crushed it, and
There's
I
a
love the
very
end
cool one
credits.
coming. There's a very cool one coming that's Louise and Tina centric that I am super attached to. That's the thing. I maybe I should have said like, oh, if we could delay the meeting until after. But yeah, there's a very it's an episode where they actually let me anim direct uh three sequences in the episode. That's a where they go into a very different animated style
Mhm.
and they let me direct those sequences and it's such a huge it's definitely the biggest episode for me personally just because same thing they they asked me to direct these sequences and I was really knocked out and it was a very special time for me as far as like you know I on top of just working these projects, I've always been an underling, being
Mhm.
told what to do. And this is my first time where I don't want to say they're under me, but I'm in charge of other animators,
Yeah.
and I have to approve their work and I have to tell them what to do and how to do it and I've never been in that position. I've never been in a managerial position before, and so it's very different for me, and it's very special for me when things actually work.
Mhm.
you know, I'm not and again the like what you're saying, the camaraderie. I like being. I know how much it means to me when my superiors validate me and give me moments, and so it's great to work alongside these animators and helping them achieve that that positive that solid acting
Mhm.
or just getting that shot like in a great spot and being there to guide them to that point. It's such a fun moment when the shot actually turns out good, you know,
Yeah.
and everyone's happy with it. And I know that I helped that animator get to that point. It's a really fun experience too. And then going back to that episode, it is going to be a Tina and Louise centric episode. It's really touching. I absolutely love it. I'm so proud of it, and I
You know
can't
what that
wait for
means
it
though,
to be
right?
what.
That means you should probably come back on for a part two so we can talk about that episode.
Yeah, man, I'd love to.
Oh, absolutely, man. I
I
always
tell you,
enjoy having you
I'll
guys
tell you,
back
man.
on.
When that episode airs, I will be more than ready to just talk my mouth off about it because it
Yeah.
was such a cool experience for
I
me
have to
personally.
imagine. Do you know when that episode's going to release? Do they have a release date on that one yet?
I think it's in December. It's going to be
Okay.
in sometime in December.
Okay.
But
Cool. Well, I got something to really, really looking forward to other
yeah,
than
yeah,
looking
I
forward to
can't,
every Sunday a new
I can't
episode.
wait. Oh man, my ass cheeks have been clenched for so long from
Well,
it.
so the last episode here that we'll chat before we get out of here, man, is Don't Stop Be Cheesin'. This one was so fun because two things really. I'm a huge fan of American cheese. I love it. I think it's like the best cheese on
Me
a
too.
burger. It gets shit on so much. Oh, it's not real cheese. No shit. The stuff that everybody drinks isn't real either, man. It's all fucking chemicals. But
Yeah, yeah.
that's that different conversation for a different time. You know what I mean? So just there was so many scenes in here that I love. Anytime Luis, and I'm not advocating for, what's it called? Shit, brother sister violence,
Yeah.
sibling violence. But anytime like Luis has to like grab Tina and slap her, and then it's like, all right, now Tina's being serious now. I love that because it's like it's breaking that wall. She's like, all right, this is real serious Tina now. But her just going like step by step and essentially building a super soldier with
Yes.
Tina and this assassin, this cheese
Yes.
assassin, right? And it's such a silly like high school like and or
Yep.
freshman into senior or whatever it might be prank that everybody really heard about when you were going through high
Hmm.
school and shit like that. It's so silly, it's so dumb, but it's so fucking funny, dude. Just
Yeah.
and every cheesing you guys did was like different. Not one was the same, which I thought was pretty
Hmm.
cool. There's like 30 something different cheese attacks in here,
Oh
but
yeah.
my favorite one was towards the end. I can't remember it might was it Tammy maybe, but Tina like Chinese stars the fucking thing, completely misses, and then you see them having like a Mexican standoff. She's trying to scratch
Yeah.
scratch the
That's
rapper.
so
Don't
good.
move, don't move. I'm just trying to get it. That was such a fun scene. So I would love to know, man, what part of this episode sticks out to you as being like one of your favorite parts?
I will say, again, going back to what I will say, and it's just again for me personally was the end credits again
Mhm.
because they gave me the end credits to do,
Yeah,
and and of course, I've already worked on the whole episode. We usually do the end credits near the end, and so I've already like been immersed in the whole Tina becoming this cheese warrior. So I'm
yeah,
like already thick into that mentality when I started boarding out the end credits. And again, it was one of those times where I was like, oh, it'd be cute if she like popped out of the cabinet and threw his cheese, and if she, if she did this and threw a cheese, and if she did that and threw a cheese, and I just had fun with it. And I gave it to Tony, and he was like, "This is awesome." He was so into it, and that's when I discovered Tony apparently just loves one of the personal things that he loves is when just characters pop out of one place, do something, and then pop out, then pop into
yeah,
another place to do. That's just something he loves to see. So it wasn't intentional, but I found like a little cheat code for getting a
yeah,
Tony approval. But but uh but yeah, for me that was one of those times where I put like so much love into those end credits, and everyone loved it. Lauren loved it. I was like, oh, that's so great that everyone just. It's almost like you get the feeling that they feel that type of energy that I put into it, where it's like I really wanted it to work, and I really wanted it to be funny, and I really wanted it to have that like ninja kind of feel to it,
hmm
and everyone just felt it, and I was so happy. And then I showed it to the animation team, and you could just see their eyes light up
yeah.
because we get to do the end credits all in house, and so all the animators lit up, and they're like, "I want that shot! I want that shot!" And everyone just got super into it. And I was like, "Yeah, cool. This is gonna be great." And I I took the extra effort to do what's called a tie down, where it's not just the rough scribble pass. It's like getting the characters on model, and and I even wrote like timing charts for Tina and everything, and then I handed it off to the animators, and they knocked it out of the park. I was
Yeah.
when the shots started coming back, I was just like, you guys like did even better than what I was expecting.
hmm
And it almost just it was one of those moments that just almost brought me to tears where it was like my little baby and the animators treated my baby so special and gave it back to me in this beautiful way.
Hmm.
And I just teared up over like, oh my God, this is so good. And so for me, it's just again, it was such a special moment for me in that episode. Even when times there were things where like where parts were plussed, where um, the shot where you see the cheese slices just fly across the screen, and then you see Tina
Hmm.
doing that, and as she's walking forward, I just
Yeah.
had like I just had like her walking like that in my
Hmm.
boards. But the animator, his name is Jeff. When he animated it, I was just thinking Tina was just going to be like step, step, step. But
Yeah.
Jeff did this, she's doing this groove and flinging them. And I was like, that is so freaking cool, man. And I was like, dude, you got her strutting. That's awesome. And he was like, I just did what you did in the boards. I was like, no, dude, this is way cooler than what I did. And and so yeah. So um I I am still like, as much as I love the writing, I'm still, an animator at heart. And
Hmm.
so a lot of special moments for me are just like moments like that where it is more animation and visual based that I just, that's why that episode is so special for me. But again, as far as like going back into the writing side and the character side, yeah, it was a cool, I love treating Tina, like you said, treating Tina, like building her into this like warrior and
Yeah.
getting her into, it's kind of out of her comfort zone, but then she embraces it and she's just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And it is one of those brief moments where a Belcher gets a win. So
Hmm.
so
Everybody gets a win when a Belcher gets a win.
exactly. So that makes the episode a little special to me. I still stand on, there's always comedy and tragedy, which is
Hmm.
why, in my mind, I feel like that's why it's so rare that Belchers get a win because, there's more comedy when they don't get a win.
Yeah.
But
And everybody likes an underdog as well.
yes, yeah, yeah. And again, I couldn't be happier that Tina actually got a win in this episode. It feels right. It feels good. And yeah, it's one of those moments where everyone kind of came together, where like where where Louise just rallied for Tina
Hmm.
and like just really pushed her to do it. And it's it's such a special, as far as writing goes, it was such a cool moment. It was really cool too to bring in like all these B characters, like bringing Sam back and bringing in Susmita and Henry and Courtney. It was such a fun little group, and I did love. I always read Reddit after an episode's released, and it was cool just to see this reaction of people going like, "Oh yeah, look at this kind of like ragtag Tina Friends
Hmm.
team," because it's just Tina and Jimmy Jr. But yeah, it's cool kind of seeing Tina sort of find this new
Branch
little
out.
group of friends. Yeah, and I don't know, I just love that. It's a kind of a, I don't know. I my brain goes to like Stand By Me kind of thing, where it's just this new little group of kids that's like, yeah, I would love to see more little adventures of them doing stuff
Hmm.
together.
There,
And
there was one thing I can't remember if it happened in this episode, but you guys threw like a lot of references in there when she would come into the scene or when she was about to hit her attack. You know what I mean? So there was like a lot of things, and I don't think it happened. And if it did, this is just me playing armchair quarterback. I wish it would have. Uh, did you guys do a Predator scene in there where Arnie had, or like when Arnold had the face paint and he's coming out of the water? They're trying to hide from it, and then
oh,
he
we
leaks back.
should have. I don't
I
remember doing that, but we should have. That would have been perfect.
Oh, dude, especially when they get into the warehouse, like that was like I was like, all right, they're gonna do
Yes.
it here. They're gonna do it here. just Tina with the fucking face paint, and then her just sliding into frame really closely, and then just her dipping back out. I thought it would have been like the piece de resistance. It
Oh
would have
my
been like,
God,
mwah,
it would have been so
chef's
good.
kiss.
I could have sworn it was a while ago, but man, I could have sworn there was a Predator reference that we were talking about. I mean, so many things just for time, a lot of things get cut. And
Yeah.
remember, God, which one was it? It could have been, it could have been the For Who the Doll Toes was where Lauren was kind of upset that a lot of jokes got cut. He's like, this one we don't have enough jokes in this one. Not that he wasn't complaining that we didn't have enough jokes in it, but it was one of those where it's like we had to scrap a lot of jokes just to get the core story
Yeah.
elements in there. But yeah, I mean,
Well,
I
that one
could have
was hitting
sworn
on that
there
one
was a
was hitting on all
Predator.
cylinders. So I don't
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
all got cut from it, but that one was fucking good. And I would love to see if that is what we got after all of those cuts and those edits, just to make sure that everything flowed. I would love to see Lauren, if you're listening, watching. You're probably not because you're busy running one of the greatest shows of all time. However, you released the soundtrack a couple days ago. We need the
Yeah.
final cut. We need the who
Yeah, the
directed this?
director's
Who
cut.
directed this one? Who directed this
Oh
episode?
God, I don't remember. I don't know. I'd have to look.
We need the Bob's cut is what I'm getting at, Lauren. Let's Snyder got one. David Ayer got one with the Suicide Squad. We need a Bob's Burgers cut, Lauren. Come on, help us out here.
Oh my
Um,
God, dude. There if we could get director's cuts of all the episodes, man, there are so
that's an
many
untapped
jokes that,
market
huh?
financially. Financially, that'd be huge.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. We need to do like what the extended Lord of the Rings, DVD set, but with Bob's.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd fucking be
Okay.
hook, line, and sinker for it. You could throw it up on a YouTube channel for Fox or whoever knows it now, and then you can get some nice
Oh yeah,
residuals
man.
for it.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, because I'm telling you, every episode there's always a sad, baby killing moment where, there's a great joke that's like, oh, we gotta lose that. Oh man. All right, fine. But you know, hey, it's the name of the game. When you
Yeah.
only have 22 minutes for, to get your stories told. You
So
gotta
what I'm
kill you
hearing
gotta
is we
kill
need
baby
28
too.
minutes, ladies and gentlemen. We need 28 minutes of Bob's from now on.
Mhm.
So, with we talked a lot of Bob's, man, today, and like I said, it's always a blast when I get to talk to folks like yourself because, you know, what shows like King of the Hill and Hey Arnold and Samurai Jack did for me as a little kid, you guys are getting to do that same thing. Like I had the same affection for these that some other little kid that's coming up now. So like this is their greatest show of all time. This is their favorite family of all time. And
Yeah.
I get to share this show with my family. And very often, with the exception of my oldest son, like we don't watch the same things. Like I watch more anime now than I ever have in my life, just because that's what my oldest is into, and I want to make sure that we can watch stuff together and
Awesome.
connect over it.
Awesome.
And with Bob's has been in my life since at the very least 2012. I'm pretty sure I saw this at the beginning before that deployment, but I'm pretty sure, it might have been the other way. But nonetheless, man, for like 13 years now at this point
Yeah.
this show has been in my life. And every time I get to watch this now, I get to watch it with my family. So you guys are like creating this family what I can't think of the fucking word, but it's just like you guys are like what movies used to do, creating this excitement, the suspense, like, oh, I get to go to the movies. This is what we get to do,
Yeah.
man. Every night when we get home, we ain't got too much shit to do. We get to sit down and watch a couple episodes of Bob's. And I'm very grateful for that because especially now, it's like as I've gotten older, like I said, I'm 35. It's not that old, but I've gotten older. I'm really starting to realize, like, man, it's not like I don't have like infinity time. I
Yeah.
sometime this train's gonna run out, and I'm getting
Yeah.
to enjoy it with the people I love, with something that I really look forward to. And the fact that we can all agree that it's funny, we can all agree that it's a great time to sit down and watch it is very
Yeah.
far and few between. You know what I mean? So hats off to you guys and everybody that's touched this show.
Thanks,
From
man.
me to you and everybody else, man, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys so much for Bob's
Well,
Burgers.
thank you. We appreciate it. I mean, we're just I'm I can't speak for everyone. I'm just over the moon that I get to participate. Just getting to work on it has been such a cool thing, and every single time they give me more rope to hang myself, I'm just like, oh. I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah.
And and I try to make the best of it as I can. Uh and it's just it's so great to see that people enjoy it. And it's such a, you know, again, working with such great writers, like you said, it's a family thing. It's so cool to, like, I don't have kids, and
Mhm.
so it's so whenever, going back to the whole thing where it's like, there are times where, Bob is being a dad,
Mhm.
and it's difficult for me to get into that mindset. I try my best. It's like, oh, what if I had kids and what would I do, blah blah blah. But thankfully we've got so many great writers who know exactly what a character
Yeah.
would do in that situation. And uh and so, yeah, it's such an amazing team. Everyone's just top of their game at making such a quality product. And it's so I'm so thankful to be part of on that ship, on that ship with them.
Yeah, we're proud too, man. Like I said, you guys are absolutely crushing, especially this last season. This season has been hit, 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 hit. I haven't laughed this hard at like episode to episode on anything in quite some time, man. It's like I
Oh,
said, you guys are
awesome.
absolutely crushing it.
Awesome.
But before we hit record, man, you showed me something really, really cool that I'm gonna have to go to your website and purchase as soon as
Yeah.
we're done with this, man. But you and your wife do a comic book graphic novel
Yeah,
together,
we
man.
sure
So
do.
let's tell us about it.
Cool. It's called Band. It's about a band.
Hmm.
And I mean, if you like Bob's, you'd probably like the comic because it's all very character based.
Hmm.
Uh, it's
Love the
it's
art
definitely
style.
my art style, so it's more kind of a Disney-ish style. But it's very my wife's another brilliant writer that I'm fortunate enough to work alongside, and it's a very character based, a lot of funny dialogue in my opinion. And uh and uh it's all just focused on this. There's some I've been in a band. I play drums, and so I've been in a band here and there, all through college, and even past that. I've just playing around with various bands. There's so much drama. Yeah, I mean, you put two heads together, and there's going to be drama.
Oh yeah.
So in a band, there's four heads that's going to bring in every their own unique taste of drama. And so that's really the premise of the whole comic, is the drama behind being in a band. and
Hmm.
uh and we keep it funny. We keep it there, a lot of comedy, a lot of drama, and just, again, a lot of human absurdity behind just people making big deals over nothing, and trying to make music. But yeah, it's a fun product. Yeah, we have two volumes. This is volume two. And yeah, there's all it's the you can buy the first volume online, on our website, called it's band-comic.com. And yeah, it's a fun read. I think it is, anyway. That's why I drew it, because when she was writing it, I was like, this is actually pretty good. I just started doodling behind her, and I was like, yeah, we both agreed. It was like, yeah, let's actually do something with it. And we've been doing it for years. So
That's really cool. I'm looking forward to picking it up, man.
yeah,
Well, like I said, Aaron, this has been a lot of fun. Anytime I get to deep dive into a world that I enjoy so much, I always get a real big kick out of it. Thank you. Like I said, I've told you thank you so many times, but thank you for doing what you guys do on Bob's,
oh, thank
man.
you.
It's always a pleasure to pop on that TV and be just inundated with these characters that I've grown so fond with over. I mean, these kids have been, I'm not kids, fuck man, I sound so old. These these characters have been in my life for so long. It feels like they're an extension of my family. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, wonder what Bob and Linda are up to. Wonder what Luis is choking out today. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So it's always fun just kicking on an episode. And it doesn't matter if I've watched this episode once or I've watched this episode 100 times, man. I find something different. I find something fun. I find something interesting, and I find something that I go, huh. every time or laugh my ass off every
Oh
single
yeah,
time with each one of these
yeah,
episodes. And that's some mark of a true what's it called? Hmm. That's the mark of a true craftsman right there with what this is.
yeah.
This is true perfection on the screen. So thank you.
Um,
Um,
Thank you.
where can the fans go and find you if they want to say, "Hey, Aaron, I love what you do." Where can they find your comic book? All these links will be in the description below, but where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on most social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Twitter. I keep my Tumblr updated. I don't
Mhm.
get a lot, lot of back and forth on that, but it's one of those things. Like I started one, and I just kind of was like, well, it's here, so I'm gonna keep doing that. Uh, LinkedIn, yeah, and I'm probably one of these days I might get a Blue Sky account, but it seems like that's what people are doing. But yeah, I mean, most just social media. If you look up Erin Humiston, you'll probably find me.
Beautiful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, all those links will be down below. So just point, click, and go and tell Aaron how great of a job they're doing over at Bob's. There's no better way to end this, man, than he's been Aaron. I've been Julian. It's been a What's My Head podcast, and it's been another piece of childhood. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.